Russ, and for our MC, Gerald Hoover. So to everybody, thank you for coming and for your support. So just a brief note, the Republican women here in Gillespie County have a mission statement that focuses on the effectiveness of women in the cause of good government through active and educated political participation. So this is what we're trying to do. Get active and get engaged and come together so we can get our state and our country back to our core values and principles as American citizens. I know you all here are just cohesive in our thoughts for what is right and good. We speak for our freedoms and our rights. Freedom of speech, gun rights, civil rights, pro-life, border control, school choice, and so many other issues. So please come and join us.
And join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag, followed by the pledge to the Texas flag. If you can't see it, the American flag is over here, but if you can't see it, it's in your heart anyway, right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag is right here. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, BC. My pleasure to introduce to you tonight someone most of you will know, been here in the community as a celebrity musician, a celebrity musician for lots of years. Please welcome Russ Hurd.
Gerald just asked you to sit down, but would you stand for us as we honor America with our national anthem? About 3,000 years ago, King Solomon had completed the construction of the temple in Jerusalem. And as part of the dedication of the temple that day, King Solomon prayed to God. And in reply to Solomon's prayer, the Lord spoke these words as we find them in the Old Testament in the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. The lyrics, to be clear, Solomon heard from the Lord that day as he spoke to the nation of Israel 3,000 years ago. But if we are one nation under God, as we profess to be, are these not the very same principles that will heal our nation? So the lyrics to this next song are word for word from the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 14.
Solemn attention for just a few minutes, please. Before we get in line for dinner, I would like to take a few moments for us to focus our attention and our heart's desires toward the peace and comfort of the people who are the family of these 13 fallen people here, and recognize their sacrifice for the United States. 13 died in an enemy attack in Afghanistan the latter part of August. And their names and where they're from are here. Each one, and you will be struck if you don't know already, which most of you probably do, at how young they all are. They're all, except for one, in their 20s. And of course, many of you have had family members, many of you yourselves served in combat. And when you sign up, you know that's always a possibility. But as a parent, as a grandparent, as a brother, as a husband, as a friend, you never surely expect that. 11 Marines, 1 Navy corpsman, and 1 soldier. I would like please for us to just pause. Would you please stand, remove your covers, gentlemen, please. For just a moment of silence in their honor and on behalf of this great nation. Thank you. Now if you will be seated. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the main event. I know that the speaker is known to all of you. It is my pleasure to read a brief bio. Lara Logan, her candid reporting often from those dangerous places in the world, has earned her a prominent place among the world's best foreign correspondents. In her role at 60 Minutes, Lara has helped her audiences understand the political and human conflicts around the world, including Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Israel, Palestine, and Egypt. Logan has earned almost every journalistic and reporting award, among them are the highly prestigious DuPont Columbia University Silver Baton, the Overseas Press Club, the Emmys, Radio, Television, Digital News Association's Edward R. Murrow Award. Today, she has a successful long-form TV series, Investigated, that takes on significant topics. Most of you know them and have seen them. It's called Lara Logan Has No Agenda, and is broadcast on Fox News. The series has taken her deep into subjects like immigration and the Southwest border, socialism, media, veterans, and others. You will often see her on various news programs and prime-time Fox shows where she is a solid voice to comment on topics ranging from national security to terrorism, journalism, and foreign affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce and say good evening to Lara Logan.
From his memory and his brain, and without even a plan, and to the winemakers, and of course to our host this evening, the Republican women of Texas. So that's the nice part over. Now you get the Lara Logan, right? The real Lara Logan. So good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming to hear me speak. It's sort of, I love living here. I love Fredericksburg. I love the hill country, and I love Texas. I really do. When I first came here with my husband, Joseph Burkett, whose family was one of the founding families of this town, what I liked about it was that it had that wild, independent spirit that I grew up with in Africa. And that really spoke to me and resonated in my heart. And I have a real feeling that God somehow guided me to this place and to all of you, because the only reason, literally, the only reason I am still on television at all, in fact, the only reason I'm employed in the media at all, is all of you. And I'm not saying that to flatter anybody, because I think you can tell, even those of you who don't know me well, that flattery is not really my specialty, and I struggle to fake it, not my specialty either. And I say that because it's really important for you to understand what that means. It literally means that I am only here today. I'm only on, for those of you who've seen my show on Fox Nation, Lara Logan has no agenda. It's a little bit of a stupid name, I know, but I had to do that because someone else had no agenda, which was the name I wanted. And actually, they moved here from Austin and live on my street. How crazy is that? But the point of it was, the point of no agenda was that they were trying to paint me into a corner that wasn't true, it wasn't honest, and it wasn't real. It was a corner that they created for me to try to sideline me and to take away my voice, and most importantly, to present me as something that I wasn't. I have always been a journalist, and I have never been politically defined. And I know who I am and what I believe in and what I stand for. And no one's going to take that from me. Nobody. So, a very smart man once told me that what you want to do is anticipate what they're going to tell you, what they're going to say about you, right? You want to anticipate the counter, and you want them to prove you right. When they attack, you want them to prove you right. So I thought about it, and I thought, what do they like to say? That I used to have this great career at 60 Minutes, and then I became this right-wing stooge, and now I'm just scraping the bottom of the barrel, bottom of the old right-wing conspiracy barrel, right? And none of that is true. So what could I do to make them work at it? Because we know they're going to be, let's just say jackasses, right? So how do you make them work at it? Well, you make them say every time they attack you, Lara Logan has no agenda. Now they have to prove I have an agenda. I don't have to prove anymore that I don't have one. And you all know I don't have one because every time I open my mouth, it's very clear. I'm an equal opportunity offender. I offend everybody. So I'm not even trying to make friends, right? I'm not even trying to make friends because that's not my job. So I tell you this because every one of you can use that. That applies to every single one of you, right? Think about how they're going to attack you and make them work at it. Don't make it easy for them. When I was a correspondent in Iraq during the invasion, Dan Rather was a complete, not very nice to me. I came back and I told my boss, I was like, what happened? Dan said you weren't around, you weren't a team player. I took him through everything. My boss said, look, we know they're going to be bad people. Just make them work at it. Don't make it easy for them. And I took that lesson to heart, and it's a good lesson. And so what is the point of all of this? The point of all of this is to tell you that I was targeted for my story, my reporting on Benghazi, because I did the best story that anyone's ever done on Benghazi. And I've been waiting more than a decade to say those words. And I'm proud of that story. I'm proud of the work that we did, because we exposed
exposed the only thing about Benghazi that really and truly went to the core of what Benghazi was really about, which was that we had U.S. leaders who had more invested in letting an American ambassador die than in trying to save him. We had more invested in the terrorists of Al-Qaeda than we did in our own citizens. And boy, ain't that true today in Afghanistan and the southern border and every town and city across this country. Isn't that true everywhere? There's not an American alive or a green card holder, lawful permanent resident, which I am, if they never give me my citizenship, it's obvious why. But also, right, anyone who has a legal right, a visa holder, to be in this country, anyone who is attached to the red, white, and blue today, you're walking around with a big target on your head, and another one on your back, and another one on your chest. If you're a rancher, or you're a business person, or it's your child in school, if somebody betrays you, do you advise your child or your business to trust them again? We all know the answer to that. You don't have to be an expert in geopolitics or a student of history or of the National Security Council. That's a no-brainer. That's what's called a no-brainer. That's what's called 1 + 1 always equals 2. Doesn't matter, right? They can throw critical race theory in there. They can throw white supremacy. They can throw economic statistics. They can do whatever the hell they want. And it doesn't change the simple fact that 1 + 1 always equals 2. So why do I say that? Because we get caught up in the, do we know this and do we know that? And I was talking to a congressman today, and what I said to him was, sir, actually I didn't say sir. I'll be honest. But what I said was, I understand that you're very much caught up in the minutiae of your day-to-day job. It's not easy, right? It's not easy, let's be honest. However, what I'm going to tell you is, because I'm not, I have the ability to look at your problem tactically, but also strategically. And I think it would help you to look at your problems more strategically when you can. Because this is what I see. This thing that you're talking about, and it's all about the spending bill right now. You don't even know the fight, the blood fight that's going on Capitol Hill over this spending bill. And, these people want something about women and this and that. And I just said to them, there's only one fight about women right now that matters in the world. Only one. Only one you can actually win. And if you win this one, you win every battle for every woman. Whether it's transgender sports, or it's the draft, or it's this, or it's that. None of those fights can be won and affect all the others. The only one that can are the women of Afghanistan. It's the only one. Because nothing exposes the hypocrisy like that. What we did in Afghanistan is a death sentence for every single woman. Every single one. Not one, not half, not millions. Every single one. It's a death sentence for the women who haven't even been born yet. Think about that. It's a death sentence for every woman that follows. That beautiful child over there, that beautiful little girl. Do you know how many beautiful little girls there are like that? Everything was taken from them. Everything. I don't even know how to tell you what that looks like. I don't, because it's the darkest place you have ever been. And we did it. We did it. Not Biden, not Austin, not Millie, all of them. But you know what? I see this all the time. Well, occasionally when I look at the comments, I have the stomach for it on my on social media. I don't do it often. Mostly I do it to find the the bots and see the strategy that's being used to counter me. But what I see is people saying, well, that's Biden. That's not all of us. Because I use language like, this is on all of us. And people say, that's not us. And I say, it is to them. Why is it to them? You want to know why? Because we represent a number of things in the world. You here in Texas, I mean, it's kind of incredible because in many ways, this is the heart and soul of what it means to be American. And it's not just Texas, right? It's Texas and it's other places, but there's something about the Alamo and all of that that tells you this will be the last stand. We know it. Everyone knows it. We just don't want it to end quite the same way. It'd be quite nice if we could win both battles, not just the end of the second one. But what I mean is, this is what I mean, is that there's a light that comes from America. And it really does shine in every part of the world. Even when you're in a place where people live differently, when you meet them and when you talk to them, the reason there's an invasion of the southern border is that everybody wants to be in the light. That means that the light in us, in all of us, is stronger than the dark. But it means that the good is worth more than evil. It really does. But it doesn't survive on its own. I mean, there's lots of sayings about this, right? Depending on who you talk to, freedom isn't free, and, where's the one about rough, gentlemen sleep easy in their beds at night because rough men stand ready to do the job. And we all know those things. We say them all the time. We print them on t-shirts. But this is the moment. Unfortunately, I thought a lot about what I was going to say this evening and what people would want to hear about. I know people want an uplifting message and they want to laugh and they don't want anything to be too heavy and all that stuff. But I don't think there's ever been a moment like this in our lifetimes. I know that for sure. But even maybe in history, since 1776. Because if you want to know what's really what Afghanistan is really about, it's about 1776. It's not about, do we stay in Afghanistan or do we leave? It's not about an endless war or a forever war or anything else. All of that is a lie. So when you hear all of that, or what you can do, because people ask me all the time, how do I know? Take it back to 1 + 1 = 2. That's where you got to take it back to. It's that simple. If you don't want terrorists to have $85 billion worth of military equipment, well, don't let them happen. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that doesn't make us safer. Right? It doesn't take a genius to figure out that people who are allowing that to happen have made a choice to allow that to happen. Now, we don't know all of the things that we can do. I mean, there's people in this room, though, who do, and they should speak up. But just one example, you can send in stealth UAVs. You don't have to have boots on the ground. Stop going, it's like watching cattle be pushed into pens. Watching us all go where they want us to go. Right? Why do you keep doing that? Oh, I'm not going to tell anyone that I watch Fox News because I don't want anyone to think I'm conservative. Well, I'm not going to mention God because I don't want anyone to think I'm a crazy Christian. Well, I'm not going to admit that, I'm going to say I come from Austin because when I'm, visiting New York, that's acceptable. Stop. Stop it now. Seriously. People ask me, where do I go to get my news? I just want honest news. There's no place you can just go. There's no easy button here. It doesn't exist. There's no white knight coming. There's no, leadership that are just going to save you. I hate to tell you, but those members of Congress, they're just like you. They're just trying to figure it out. Every time they do something, they get attacked. You do something, you get attacked. That's what happens. You know why it happens? Because we let it happen. Because when our congressmen and senators get attacked, we're also quiet. We also don't stand up. That's why when they say that your kid has to wear a mask to school, you go along with it. Don't think, please. I'm not saying COVID isn't real. My uncle died from COVID. I couldn't bury my father because of COVID. And I could go on. But everyone here has a story like that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is the death rates are the same as flu, according to the CDC. That's what I'm saying. So if you open your eyes, you don't have to wear a mask to school for flu. You don't. You don't have to resign your commission as an officer in the Texas National Guard because of flu. But you do. You do now. Do you know that? Do you know that we have guardsmen in Texas who are resigning their commissions? Whose families are giving up everything? I know a guy who works in the Border Patrol, and on his 2 days off a week, he works in the Guard. And he's losing both careers. And where are you? Where are you, Tea Party? Where are you, Republican women? Where are you, people of Gillespie County, Texas? Where are you? This is an extraordinarily beautiful community, and I really do love being here and living here. But I don't really love my children learning that Karl Marx was a famous German philosopher, which is what they were taught at school in Fredericksburg. I don't like it. You know why? Because when I asked the school, so are you aware of Karl Marx's policy on religion? I was told no. I said, well, it has a lot to do with the elimination of the church, Christianity, faith, no religion. That's not a complicated, factor. But you're teaching Karl Marx's theories as a reorganization of society and economy and everything as if it's we emphasize that capitalism was a better system. I said, but he's not even a philosopher. He was never a philosopher. And this is not a system of reorganization. He was hired by Henry Rothschild to create a system of social control. And that's what they're doing to all of us, controlling us, trying to control us. And I was told, I've spoken to the other parents and the teachers, and they're all fine with it. If you have a problem with it, you could deal with it at home. That's what I was told, Fredericksburg, Texas. Just up the road here, at a foundation, one of the board members found in the library a book, children's book, teaching young boys how to pleasure adults. In a library in Texas. And they had to request from the librarian lists of all the books she had bought for that library. How many libraries in the United States of America today have books like that? Wake up. Wake up. There is a system and an organization and a plan behind every single thing that you are seeing. Every single thing. None of it is because of failure. None of it is because of incompetence. None of it is because people didn't see it coming. You want to know around, there's 30,000 people in the Darien Gap. Look it up on a map. Figure out where the Darien Gap is. You know why? Because they're all coming to Texas. That's why. There's 30,000 more Haitians coming through the Darien Gap. And guess what? We have intelligence assets that see every bit of movement on the globe. So they know it's coming. They knew the 15,000 Haitians before that were coming. And why does it matter? Because if you look at what the Biden administration has done since they took power, they have never once identified anything that happened at the border as a problem or a crisis Have they? No. And this isn't about Biden or not Biden. This is about the people who are in power today do not recognize this as a problem. Why not? I'll tell you why. Because if you go back to 2018, to the United Nations Global Compact on safe, secure, and regular migration, they are implementing their plan. And that's not conspiracy. They can put that on their website. They can host conferences. They can review the policy. They can host follow-up conferences, and they can all talk about it. But if I talk about it, I'm a conspiracy theorist, because we allow them to give us these labels. Conspiracy, racist, alt-right, white supremacist. I mean, go through the list. Stop being afraid of it. Stop being afraid of it. The tactics are not that hard to identify. They really aren't. And think about what the attack is going to be and how you're going to counter it. And go on the offense. That's what I'm trying to do. And I can't do it alone. Honestly, I'm only doing it, back to what I said in the beginning, because people know that it's true. And it's all of you in this room, because you care and you're listening and you're paying attention. But I only have a certain shelf life before they win. As Tucker Carlson said to me a few weeks ago at his studio in Maine, I said to him, I can't believe you've survived this long, considering how many of them want to kill you, and now, I'm going on your show again. And he said, oh, it's just a matter of time. I know it is. It's just a matter of time. His daughter, by the way, had 22 friends over for the weekend when I was there. And I say that to you because the longer I have depends on all of you. That's just a reality. I got asked, somebody asked me in the middle of all the chaos, will you talk about the border at some event? And I said, sure, and that was the end of it. And what happened? Sometime later I get frantic calls from press officer Fox, are you doing a QAnon conference in Las Vegas? And I'm like, what? Seriously? And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Of course, some guy who has hosted this conference has been identified as QAnon, and now they want to tie me to QAnon. I haven't even spoken to the guy. I don't know his name. I've never met him. Nothing like that. And the Fox press office, they said, well, can you just check? And I said, no, I'm not going to check. You know why? Because I've got nothing to do with QAnon. But if I wanted to do a QAnon conference, I would. I wouldn't do it because it's an information operation that is being carried out to control both sides of the narrative and to discredit people. And it's associated with General Stanley McChrystal. And I've now confirmed that with multiple sources, who's been running multiple information operations, actually, and has been targeting good, decent American people with the same tactics that were developed to be used against this nation's foreign enemies. And you can look that up. Look at the partnership between Stan McChrystal, the great general, and Defeat Disinfo, the hard left radical organization that has been systematically pushing out disinformation so that none of you and none of us will ever be able to see the truth. That's what it's all about. Ambiguity increasing. Throw all this stuff in there, and so that we can't see what's really happening, and that we think it's complicated. We think we don't know. We're afraid. All these other things. And none of that is real. You know what's real? 1 + 1 always equals 2. That's real. And I say all of this because I don't really care how long I have to go in the most fundamental sense, because I'm going to make every minute count. I just know I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. I am not going to live in fear one more day of my life. I want according to the UN this week, there's 1.2 billion climate refugees who have a legal, internationally recognized human right to migrate because of climate change. They're all coming over the southern border. That's where they're coming. Maybe not all of them. But you get the point. This is not over. Okay? Don't think you can get through this Haitian crisis and somehow it's all going to be fixed. Don't think because you know the border, because you've lived in Texas for 50 years or 80 years or whatever, and you live down on the border and you know better, and we've seen this before. Don't think that that's what's happening here, because that's not what's happening. Every single thing that's going on is connected. Every single thing. That's why you see me when I'm asked about the border and suddenly I'm talking about critical race theory. Why am I doing that? Because I'm trying to get you to understand and get people to see that what's coming over the border, A, it's not accidental, it's planned, just like Afghanistan is planned. But B, it's part of a bigger plan. And all of you, all of us, are trying to hold on to something, right? If I just follow the rules, and I wear my mask, and I do what I'm told, they won't find out what I really think, or what I really feel, or what I really believe in. And somehow, my husband's business is going to be okay, and I'm going to keep my job, and nobody's going to be mean to my kids at school. I mean, imagine my kids, shame those poor children. Seriously, you know how many people are mean to them because of me? Teachers mean to them because of me? Their whole lives. Their whole lives. And right here in this town. One of them just said this week, your mother can afford to buy shoes for this whole school. Every kid in this school. Really? I don't get paid for anything I do on Fox. You know nothing about what I earn. Shut up. I haven't had time to have that conversation. But I will. I know that it's tempting to see everything through the lens of left and right. I know that this is a Republican event, and honestly, it's the first time I've ever spoken or attended a Republican event, because I really do hard and hold and guard my independence very close, because that's what makes me a voice of truth, right? That's what makes me a voice of reason. And I don't want you to be seduced and deceived into thinking that everybody on that side thinks that way. And if they were just, the nice, good people over here. I had a gay friend tell me last week, I'm not gay enough for the LGBT community. Does that sound a lot like I'm not black enough? Right? And that's the point here, is they don't want you to see that. They don't want you to think that. They want you to think that everyone in California is, a crazy mad love Democrat, right? It's not true. It's not true. They want you to think we're so divided. I go anywhere. I literally do. I go anywhere. And I can tell you that I never find a place where people don't want to talk and don't want to understand and don't want to know the truth. I never do. Never. 50 years. 50 years I never found a place like that. They don't exist. When they're created, they're artificially created for the wrong reasons. So don't let them get away with it. Democrats all speak with the same message, because the same tactics that have made your lives miserable make their lives miserable. That's why. And sure, there are the insane ideologues and the corrupt and the evil, but they're on both sides. And what I heard around that table of congressmen was, we're fighting our own side. And there'll be people in this room tonight who'll be appearing to be something they're not. I know it. And I'm not afraid of you. So when they come for me about QAnon, I say, come on boys, you're scraping the bottom of the conspiracy barrel now. Give me a break. But you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to let that stop me from talking about child trafficking. I'm not going to let that stop me from talking about that book in the library. I'm not going to do that, because then they win again. And they win, and they win, and they win. And you know what? There's more of us than them. There are more of us than them. And I'm going to tell you that as hard as the choices are that you think you face right now, the window is closing fast. I sat next to a young man from Alabama on a plane yesterday. His family has this chemical company. He's been running it. He's 32 years old now. Been running it since he was, he's been working there and running it since he was 24. They import chemicals that make sealant expand. It's not exciting, but how much do we use that in everything? He told me that in November of last year, everything changed. They could get shipping containers from China. They would cost between $1,500 and $2,200 for a shipping container. Do you know what they pay for those shipping containers today? $45,000. I just want to know who thought it was a good idea to put our entire manufacturing capability in one place. Who thought that was a good idea? Nobody would do that. Nobody would do that. The pioneers who came here didn't do that. Did they? It doesn't make any sense. That's when you add in one and you get one. You're not getting two. You're not getting two there. That's a problem. And I say that to you because people in this country, one of the amazing things about living here for me, that I was so shocked, I actually discovered there are many Americas. You know what they're called? They're called states. You allowed yourselves to be written out of the history of this nation. You think overseas people know about Texas or Montana or Indiana? They don't know anything about you. They don't understand you. They don't know anything about you because you allowed the East and the West Coast to define you and to define what it is to be American. But when you go down the list of Medal of Honor winners, do they all come from Boston and New York and Los Angeles? No, they do not. They do not. So who makes those machines and the calibrators and the chemicals and all those things? Who feeds the nation? Is it just California? No, I believe not. And yet all of you, nobody minds. I had 60 Minutes would tell people about the history of Texas. Oh no, they retain the right to fly the flag at the same time. No, I promise you it's true. No, that's not. No, I promise you it's true. Do you know, I even Googled it one night in the airport, and I found 400 sites on the internet that said that was an old wives' tale kind of thing. Yeah. And I had to call my husband and say, didn't you tell me? I just want to be sure. Did I get this wrong? And he's like, and we actually had to go to the original document to find it. Think about that. Connect the dots. Your southern border is gone. It doesn't exist. And it's not alone. The law, immigration law, has been obliterated. It's not just not being enforced on the border. It's not being enforced all across the country. In San Francisco, when they have a problem with crime, they don't enforce the law. They get rid of the law. They're doing it in Los Angeles. They're doing it in Austin, Texas. They're doing it right under your noses. They're doing it here in Texas. Had a veteran Green Beret come into town, stop and see a friend of his. His wife was facing 2 felony counts because somebody came onto their property in the night, down a trail, through a gate, over a cattle guard. And he saw them and told them to get out. She was somewhere else, didn't know. She fired a shot into the ground and broke their window. 2 felony counts, one for firing the shot and one for washing her hands. She didn't know her husband had seen him. She wasn't anywhere near him. That's right here in Fredericksburg, Texas. What's the sheriff doing? Oh, now I'm in real trouble, right? I brought the trouble right to my door. here. They need a voice too. What's going to happen to them? They're going to have vaccines? Or they're done? Is that what we're going to do? Did you know that Ingram defunded their police force during the Summer of Love? Did you know that? That Ingram doesn't have a police force anymore? They're not paying attention. Nobody's paying attention. And let me tell you, they have a plan. And it's going right along. Because if you look at the border, you look at Afghanistan, what has it done? Afghanistan has not just isolated us on the world stage. It hasn't just told every person in the world that the American dream is a lie. It has literally told every adversary in the world that we're coming apart from within. Because they know it. They know Biden has dementia. They know he's just a puppet. They know that we don't have to leave those weapons in the hands of Al-Qaeda. They know you can stand up and go about ISIS and Taliban and whatever else, but they know that the same people who did 9/11 are the ones we just put in power. They know it. And you're going to let people stand up on 9/11 and say, never forget? I'm sorry, what does that mean? The hypocrisy. And frankly, the weakness. Why would you accept that? And believe me, I know, okay, my children haven't eaten a decent meal in I don't know how long. And I'm falling apart, seriously. I know it's hard. I really do. We moved to Fredericksburg because I was in the hospital 6 times in 8 months. Nothing I'm telling you came easily. Nothing. I'm not saying to you that there's an easy way here. What I'm telling you is, as hard as that has been, that will seem like a dream compared to where we're going. Anyone remember Poland? What was the significance of Poland in 1939? Did I screw that up? I hope not. What was the significance of Poland? It was the first salvo in a much bigger war. No American leader would willingly choose to take your terrorist enemies and give them a state. Nobody would do that. No American leader would give them $85 billion of advanced military equipment. No American leader would then transfer more assets from neighboring countries, like the Afghan Air Force, and give them to those people. The answer, the excuse you were given was that, well, we have to get our citizens out, so we have to deal with them. But our citizens are still there, aren't they? And so are green card holders. And by the way, so are all of our allies. There's veterans here. You know, if you were in Vietnam, you know we had a duty to the people that helped us in Vietnam. You know that is just it's as basic as the Geneva Convention. You don't abandon your allies. You know why you don't abandon them, apart from the moral and ethical responsibility? You don't abandon them because you need them. The 3 pillars of intelligence. You have all you have your surveillance, of course you have, and you have your technological capability. But what makes all of that work? Your human intelligence. Do you know what's happening to every person who ever gave us intelligence in Afghanistan right now? They're being hunted down systematically, not randomly, not arbitrarily. I could tell you every night. I could tell you which districts in Kabul they're searching tonight. And you know how they're finding them? With the lists that we gave them. The names, the phone numbers, the addresses, the family members, the ages, and then the biometric data to make sure that if they cross the border into Pakistan or they make it as far as the United States, they can still be hunted down and murdered. We did that. And if the American dream and the American idea is about power being vested in we the people, then we the people are allowing that to happen. January 6th. What was the point of that? The deplorables was about identifying all the targets, making us all untouchable. Charlottesville was about associating white supremacy with Trump forever and setting up the white supremacist narrative. Nick Sandman was meant to be another phase of that, but that operation didn't work out so well because one of the operatives posted a video online that exposed them, and the right journalist found it. January 6th was about what? The courts wouldn't touch the election. The Supreme Court wouldn't touch it. The corrupt states and their representatives and all those other people wouldn't touch it. So the last vestige of power that could have moved that needle was the people. It was never about Trump's personality. It was never about anything to do with that. It was never about what he said about Africans or anything else. It was always about the people. And I couldn't get anyone to listen. My family think I've gone crazy. I've got friends who don't talk to me. None of you are alone. There's families coming apart right now over these things. I've got a friend getting divorced because his wife vaccinated his kids. Right? How many parents have said, my kids have gone off to college and become Bernie bros and they don't talk to me anymore, or we can't talk about politics or this or that. That is not random, it's by design. They're separating you from your children. There's a whole ideology and infrastructure behind that. The narrative is that any form of parental power is a form of abuse. But they never finish the sentence. Because yes, we all mess up our kids. Goodness knows what my poor children. However, you know what? That's the real world. In real relationships, sometimes we do and say things that aren't that great for the people we love. But we learn how to deal with that, and it's a back and forth. It's a two-way thing. That's what's real. They don't want you to have real relationships. They want you to go to a therapist who says to you, you need a safe space around you. Don't allow people into your safe space if they make you feel bad, or they make you feel this or that, right? And they create an artificial environment around you, but you're going to spend the rest of your life paying for therapy to try to figure out how to create that, because it doesn't exist. And it's not real, and it's never going to help you. And when you start to see that it's not, it took a black woman in California who was not very sophisticated. She was just an ordinary mom. And she had the courage and the faith in herself and her beliefs and her children to go to a school board meeting and say, 2 weeks, that teacher who put that Antifa flag up was in that classroom. And I never heard my child say anything to me like she was saying in just 2 weeks. That's how fast it can happen. They're taking your children from you, taking your country from you, they're taking your church from you, your faith doesn't matter. Because let me tell you, Christianity may be first, but the rest are close behind. They're taking it all. And you're doing what? You're worried about how it's going to affect your business? This is, if you want to know where we are right now, this is what I can tell you. Imagine that you're sitting at the gates of Auschwitz, and you can see the smoke rising from the ovens, and you know the smell of bodies. It's unmistakable. Smell it once, you never forget it. And you know exactly what they're doing, because it's happening right in front of you. But when you turn on the news, you've got 5 people from the White House having an urgent press briefing about the climate change. It's supposed to stop smoke in the air. That's where we are. Riots are not riots, they're mostly peaceful protests, even when the flames are behind you, right? The border is secure even when you're watching. Thousands of people stampede across it, right? Antifa is a myth, even though you can see the people all dressed in black, the black bloc of Antifa. You can see them with your own eyes. But you're told, no, that's not what it is. I have a story coming out, and I really, really, really beg you to watch it, please, and get it out to as many people as you can. It is about the genocide of Christians in Nigeria. Why do I care? What does that mean to me? Well, let me tell you. On the very day that September 11th, 20 years ago, when the U.S. was attacked, it was a village in northern Nigeria was attacked. And I say this in my piece, I wrote this line, by people with the same ideology, using the same words, flying the same flag. And they took over that village, Rankum, established it as a base of operations. And in the 20 years since, they've killed more than 70,000 Christians. You think that doesn't matter? When we let our leaders and the media eviscerate Trump for going across Lafayette Park and holding up a Bible at a church, you may have voted for him, but you didn't speak up. Why did he do that? Why? Because they burned 22 churches in Washington, D.C. And they've been burning ever since. Wow. And they're burning not just here, they're burning all over the world. I have 2 young men, journalists in Nigeria, who live in the rural areas. They can never leave. They have no rights in northern Nigeria. And you know what they're doing? I asked both of them. I said, Lawrence, you could be killed. And he said, oh, Mom, I know I will be killed. But I have to do this because people have to know the truth. Of reporters from a group called Rural Watch. And his friend Masara Kim, he's also there. And Masara Kim, I said to him, Masara, aren't you worried about your life? And he said, Mom, he said, I am 32. I'm already overqualified for death. Most of my friends are dead. Some of them were dead before they were 5. And he said, I'd rather that I be jailed or tortured or killed than waste 1 minute not speaking the truth. He said, because those women that I filmed, whose babies were cut out of their bellies, who did they insult? What did they do? They're you know what they did? They're Christians. And in Nigeria, they are carrying out a genocide against Christians, but also against other Muslims. Because this is not a fight about just religion. Just like left and right is part of it, and religion is part of it, this is really a fight for power. It's the same old thing. It's world domination and control. And for some reason, we have people in this country who have more in common with those people than they do with any of you. And I have friends, one from California, who said to me, well, that's ridiculous. Why would they? And I said, you know what? Ask them. I don't have to answer every question. I'm not a prophet. And by the way, I'm not part of their strategy, right? So how about you get them to answer? And that's something really important that I think every one of you can do, is that I hear over and over and over again from people, well, there's no point. They're not going to change the policy. They're not going to listen. They're not going to this. They're not going to that. You know what that's called? Surrender. Think about it. In every communist takeover, there's never been more than 2% of the population that's actually been communist. So how do they get everybody else to comply? You give up the will to fight. You tell people they can't win. You convince them there's nowhere to go. And it's not worth their while. So what do? The only form of victory that you cannot take from anyone is surrender. It's got to be given. You have to give it to them. My favorite example, would be so random to so many of you, but my favorite example of that is the pirate, Charles Vane. I had no idea pirates were actually real and the pirate history was real until I discovered it. And you know what I learned? Charles Vane was one of the pirates. Pirates were freedom fighters. I mean, there were a lot of other things too. Murderers and rapists and everything else. But in their core, what were they? They were freedom fighters. They wanted freedom from Britain, just like Texas, right? Just like America. And Charles Vane was one of the pirates who was held by the British, and at his execution in the square in the Bahamas, where I've been with my husband, we've actually been to there and seen that history. He saw in the crowd his men, his pirates had come to attack and to rescue him and to save him. And he motioned to them not to do anything. And he made them watch. He allowed the British to execute him on false grounds because he wouldn't surrender. He was defiant until the last breath. They would not take it from him. And he lived forever then as a symbol of that, a symbol of those values, a symbol of freedom, a symbol of what it means to not surrender. And every time you're afraid is a form of surrender. And we're all afraid. When I tell you I'm not afraid of them, sure, I'm not afraid of them. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to hide. But it doesn't mean I'm not human. It doesn't mean I don't have, 40 million things to worry about and to keep me up at night. It doesn't mean any of that. But the fear that we're talking about, the fear of women in Afghanistan right now, of parents, the Taliban is going house to house and they're taking their 11 and 12-year-old girls. They're beheading children in front of their parents first to make you suffer as much as they can. They took a 6-month pregnant woman, Baba Nagar. She was a policewoman. So they murdered her in front of her children. They scraped her brains out with screwdrivers. Her son was the one who described it in detail on video. Those are the people that your leaders are about to legitimize and recognize as a government. That's what they're doing. And they're breaking U.S. law to do it. They go to the UN and they get a waiver from the Security Council. They pressure the other allies and they make it happen that they can travel, that they can do this, that they can do that. Why would you, if you cared about the United States of America and you believed in any of those ideals, why would you do that? Why? Nobody had a gun to their heads. Nobody said, you're going to lose the next election if you don't get out of Afghanistan. Nobody said, there were no riots in the streets. There was no political pressure. None of it. And we all act like it's in the past, but it's not in the past. Because every day I wake up and every night before I go to bed, and I'm trying to keep track of all of the different people who are being hunted, who are being executed. There's a teacher, I just got his picture with his 5 little kids around him. They executed him for teaching girls, for the crime of teaching girls. We have our own intelligence agencies, our National Security Council, our military, our executive, our State Department. They're all involved in helping our enemies kill our allies. And we're doing nothing about it. There's no protests. There's no petitions. There's no one holding their leaders to account. The media is, the strategy is obvious. It's the same with the border. Ignore it, move on. And you're just going to let it happen. Oh, it's Afghanistan. Remember the old saying from World War II, they came for the communists? I said nothing because I wasn't a communist. Came for the gypsies? I said nothing because I wasn't a gypsy. Came for the Jews? I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for me. And there was no one left to help me. Afghanistan was never about Afghanistan. It was always about a war of ideas. It was about the American idea of living under freedom and living free and not living under fear. The only thing the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, you call them what you like, the only thing that they bring as a form of governing is fear, terror and fear. So when you recognize them in whole or in part, you are legitimizing fear as a form of governance. Don't tell me that Hezbollah is not paying attention. Don't tell me that Hamas is not paying attention. Don't tell me that every nation on earth isn't paying attention to that. So why would you do it? You wouldn't do it if you wanted to protect America. You wouldn't do it if we were going to a better place. You wouldn't do it if the problem was forever war. You could have left the counterterrorism force. You could be using, many of your assets. Ask any military personnel, tell you we use 10% or less of our advanced military capability. Why? Why? We went to the terrorists responsible for 9/11 and we asked them for help securing the airport, and 13 Americans died. And you let them stand up and call that a tragedy. It's not a tragedy. And it's not the end. The women of Afghanistan is a battle that can win every battle when it comes to women, because it shows it in the simplest, starkest terms. Your home is a prison, you're a domestic slave or a sex slave, your children are raped, they're traded as chattel, they have no rights, they have nothing. They literally have nothing. And if we don't pay attention to Afghanistan and demand that we change that situation right now, we can still send stealth UAVs in and destroy every aircraft they have, every armored vehicle, every Humvee, every attack plane. Do you know that they were transferring assets with the same intelligence packages on them that are on the aircraft used by Special Operations community? And where are those assets going? Are they staying with the terrorists in Afghanistan? Or are they going to Pakistan and China and Russia and Iran? Oh yeah, you know the answer already. So why would you do that? Why would you level the playing field and make it easier for your enemies to kill your own soldiers, unless you wanted your own soldiers dead? Why would you not? There's no other reason for it. It's part of a plan. And what you're looking at with the southern border, and what you're looking at with Afghanistan, and what you're looking at with the vaccines and everything else, is chaos and instability that for them is opportunity to implement whatever it is that's coming. That's what it really is. And when you don't stand up to it, and I don't mean that everybody has to burn their lives to the ground, but I said to someone 2 years ago, worked in a bank, and he said, you know what, I don't know what I can do. I said, keep the doors of your bank open for everybody, regardless of their politics. Look where we are today. Chase Bank, closing people's accounts. They voted for Trump, buy a Trump coin, or went to the Capitol on January 6th. That's where we are. And nobody says a word. And when you look at January 6th, remember that January 6th is about making sure that we, the people, never exercise their power. That's what it's really about. And there were more FBI agents there than Proud Boys. And remember, too, that they control both sides of the narrative. So the same people funding Antifa are funding the Proud Boys. Right? And you don't want to be associated with January 6th, or you want to be associated with Trump, or you want to be associated with white supremacy. You just took a knee and played right into their hands. If it's not in your heart, stand up for the truth. And don't be counting on 2022, for goodness sake. Seriously. I don't care what they say. Everybody knows that there isn't going to be another fair election in this country again. Watch the documentary that the Democrats put together after the 2016 election. Every single thing they said to you did not happen in this election, they said happened in 2016. Right? So it wasn't true. It was true then, but it's not true now. Except that it happened now on a much bigger scale. A much bigger scale. And this is not about Democrat and Republican for me. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to say that until I'm blue in the face. Because the reality is, they want you to lose faith in your elections. They want you to not trust the media. They want you to dissolve the police. They want you to give up on the FBI. They want you to give up on your privacy. They want you to give up on the Constitution. They want you to lose your faith in the law. You know why? Because instead of having to break it all down, you're going to do it for them. Surrender. So it's easier to say the media should be abolished and the media is terrible and the media everything than it is to fight for a free media. for the media to be what it should be. It's easier, to not go out on the street ever again because you don't want to be accused and caught up in something like that. You don't want to be, let's see, in solitary confinement in a black site, off-site correctional facility. What is that? That's a black site for terrorist suspects. And we have American citizens in solitary confinement today who've never been convicted of a crime. Never been convicted. You know why they haven't been convicted? Because they haven't even been to court. I just want you to think about that for a moment. As Americans, in the great state of Texas, #1 for child trafficking in the nation, by the way. I want you to think about that. American citizens are in prison, not even normal prisons, without ever being able to see a courtroom. That's called detention without trial, and it's illegal. And no one is saying a word. So, no, my children do not sleep well at night, and we don't take vacations, and I don't go out to restaurants. I don't have a life. And I'm not saying that as a pity party. I'm telling you because so many nice people say to me, oh, please, come visit us, or do this, or do that, or, be nice to get together. It would be nice to get together. But I don't know how to do that. Because every time I turn around, there's something else. And what I see is it escalating. I can't educate my children now without giving Google full access to everything. How did that happen? How many of you tried to buy a truck lately? How hard was that? Do you know this is the last year of the fully combustible engine? They're not making them anymore after this. It's hybrids. Good luck with that. You know where hybrids are going? Where are hybrids going? They're going to a public transport system of electric driverless cars that no one in this room is going to be allowed to get on unless you lie about everything, because your little chip is going to tell them exactly what you think and believe in and what you haven't and haven't done. Does that sound far-fetched? At the World Economic Forum, they literally just this week had a conversation about the minimum global corporate income tax. It's not conspiracy. Biden was there. And all these other world leaders. At the United Nations, they're talking about the 1.2 billion climate refugees whose human right to migrate supersedes your right to a sovereign state and to the God-given rights in the Constitution. And it's already happening. It's not an idea. It's being implemented. And you know how they're paying for it? This is the best part. There's 2 ways they're paying for it. Your tax dollars. Why are we paying to put Americans in prison without trial? Why are we paying for that? Why are we paying for police and first responders and soldiers to be purged from the United States military and from our government? Is this not does the government belong to the people? Does it? You don't want it anymore? Because apparently, I don't know, I'm not seeing a whole lot of it's our government and we're not going to put up with that. You don't want it anymore. Because you know that people are being kicked out right now, right? I mean, it's not theoretical. It's happening everywhere. People are losing their jobs everywhere because of this. And not just their jobs, but their livelihoods, their ability to feed their families, their ability to keep a roof over their head. And what do they want you to do? They want you to quit. They want you to resign because you don't want the vaccine. When they have the same death rate, it doesn't make sense. That's not 1 + 1 = 2. The vaccine is created for the Alpha variant. 95% of the COVID cases right now, Delta variant. So you're taking the 2017 flu shot, and it's not working. And nobody says anything. That's what I'm trying to say to you. It's not, if you're worried about, COVID, or you lost a family member, or, you're in a vulnerable position, I have sympathy for that. But what they're telling you is a lie. Masks are made to be worn for 4 minutes in a surgery and discarded. That's what they're there for. They're not there to be contaminated and reused. They don't do anything when you do that with them. Jeez, Louise, you don't even have to know anything about COVID to figure that out. For goodness sake. They're not protecting anybody, and we all know that. They're just muzzles. And they're muzzles to isolate us from each other. Who passed the federal law that you have to wear that in the airport? I rip that thing off every time as I step off the plane, and I let them watch me. Because the only place I have to submit and wear it is on the plane. Right? So we all have to be tactical, and we all have to live to fight another day. But you also have to take a stand. Because the next part of that, we know the next part of that. It's the food. My next season for my show is the War on Beef. Right? The War on Beef. What came out this week? Some chicken disease, right? The white striping of chicken. And the this and the that. Do you know? Watch for what's counted with Beyond Meat and all that fake meat. It's about to be labeled meat. You watch. USDA is folded. We have no idea what they put in there because it's been unregulated from the beginning. The only single foodstuff in America that is unregulated. And they're taking meat itself, growing it in laboratories, calling it Beyond Meat, plant-based meat, whatever they want to call it, and telling you it's better for you than what you can eat in the natural world. And why are they doing that? Because zero net emissions is coming, isn't it? And for zero net emissions, we got to get rid of all the cattle. Oh, but guess what? We're going to also get rid of all the chickens. And we're going to get rid of all of the natural food supply. And we can eat protein bars and all that other nonsense they make in factories. Right? That's what we're going to eat. And global air travel, that's not going to be here. It's not going to exist. I asked an aviation consultant, man, that guy was so sorry he sat next to me on the plane. He eventually said, I gotta be awake for my grandma. I need to get some rest for when I land. But I got enough out of him before he passed out. And I said, you know, I've been wanting to ask this question. I see the stuff with biofuels. Richard Branson did his nice little press PR flight with biofuels, right? Wow, first flight with biofuel. Yeah, except it's hybrid. What does that mean? Well, it's really the gasoline that's powering it, the jet fuel with the hybrid. Okay, so even if they did one short flight, I said, can they do a global, transcontinental flight? He said no. I said, well, what is going to happen with that? Well, there's offsets. What is that? Well, you plant forests, right? You plant trees to offset the emissions. I said, if you planted every inch of the globe tomorrow, you couldn't offset the emissions from one transcontinental flight, could you? He said no. I said, okay, so what else you got? He said, batteries. I said, for crying in a bucket, the size of the battery it would take to power a transcontinental flight. I said, you'll be mining lithium from here to Timbuktu for the rest of time. And he said, yeah, pretty much. And remember, everything's going to be powered by battery, right? It's not just the planes. It's the cars and it's everything else. Well, so that's not going to work. And even if it did, you don't get any climate benefit from it. It's a lie. So I said, well then, that doesn't look too good. Are you telling the industry that, Mr. Consultant? And he said, well, I'm hoping that they're going to come up with something that we haven't heard of yet. And I said, oh yeah, I'm never going to see my family in South Africa again. That's what it means. I will never see my family in South Africa again. Because there will be no global airline industry or travel. We will be geographically isolated. We won't have the ability to move. We'll only be able to move when we're given permission. Whether it's vaccinated, unvaccinated, there are hundreds of coronaviruses, by the way. This is the gift that we'll never stop giving. I had cancer at 41, and my oncologist is a bone specialist, and he said he identifies coronaviruses all day long inside the bones. And they know that. They build layers and layers and layers and layers of deception. So that when you finally, if you manage to pull one away, there's another one waiting. So now that I've completely and utterly depressed everybody in the room, I will tell you, I'll tell you the thing that really counts the most. You see that they have power, you see that they have money, and by the way, just to finish that, the second part of the money is, actually before I tell you the most important thing, I do want to tell you about the money because this is important. So when I say your tax dollars, I'm not being capricious or flippant. It really is your tax dollars. And what they're doing is, if you go back to the Ukraine impeachment trial and you look on Just the News's website, they have a transparency feature. You can read the emails yourself. The Open Society Foundation, Boogeyman George Soros, they literally are arranging meetings in the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. And then they're in those meetings, and then they're following up on those meetings. Okay? And that is a pattern that is replicated all over the world. So you have an NGO, right, that's actually running U.S. government policy through the embassies. That was happening all through Obama, continued happening in some of them during Trump, although it shouldn't have, and it's still happening now. And the other arm of that is USAID, where they are using your tax dollars to fund their global agenda. And what they're doing with all of these little NGOs, they call, in their language, affinity groups. So whether it's the Sunrise Movement, or it's the this movement, or the that, it can be prison rights, it can be social justice, it can be, animal rights, it can be anything. Why is the animal rights group in 87 countries around the world? 87 countries. Why does BLM have a global network? Why does the Open Society Foundation have a university? Why? Because that is the infrastructure of their government. Those are their loyalists, their ideologues, and their enforcers. They're the brown shirts and the SS of this global world. They're implementing it at the UN, and that's not conspiracy, because they actually have UN monitors on your southern border. I've been reporting on it from the first day they got there. They're actually observing U.S. law enforcement to make sure that we implement immigration law according to their standards, agreed upon at the UN, by the way. And I'm the conspiracy theorist. So that is happening. So it's not even just your tax dollars. It's actually the branches and the infrastructure of your government is being used to implement a radical global political agenda. And it's happening. So it won't be a big invasion coming over the border that you then pick up your guns and fight and you prevail because you're proud Texans. It's already there. It's already happening. We live by their rules. What they say in cyberspace, we do. If they dare accuse you of something online, whether it's real or not, we all bow. We don't allow monopolies in the real world, but we do in cyberspace. Why? We suspend our laws and suspend our beliefs and all of those things. But they still exist. People say to me on the right to privacy, our privacy is gone. Actually, the Fourth Amendment is still there. But if you don't fight for it, it's gone. So if you want your leaders to get rid of Section 230 and not suspend defamation laws for these monopolies, then you got to make them. And the other part of how they're funding this with the money is they created systems that generate billions of dollars. Facebook is an intelligence collection system. So is Instagram, so is WhatsApp, so is Google Maps, so is all of it. And they're collecting all that information for all the different reasons. Ultimately, it's all about control. They control what you see. I can't even find something online that tells me the Texas flag is the right to fly at the same height. Because now that's managed. I can't find what Obama did to Nigerians with the asylum laws. Because every time I search it, I get 20 articles about Trump's great immigration, Biden's great immigration policy. I search Obama, Nigeria, asylum, and I get 20 articles about Biden. Small business, internet was supposed to be so great for small business. I search painted furniture and I get 400 entries from Amazon and Walmart. And I can't find a small business. My point is that the things that you think you're going to lose are already gone. And what you're fighting for is not the choice of whether to go to the gates of Auschwitz and sit there and argue about what you're looking at. What you're fighting for is, your choice is between the gate and the oven. Because that's where we're going. And with all the advantages that they have on their side, there's one thing that they don't have. And it's the reason I'm here. And it's the reason that you put up with me. And, I know people are tired and I don't do much and all that. It's the same thing. Is that everything they're doing is a lie. Everything they say is a lie. There may be elements of it that are true. And it's not all Democrats, it's not the left, it's not right. It's good people and bad people. It's literally a battle of good and evil. And if they're lying, a lie has no legs. So they keep having to tell more lies to keep it up, right? Keep having to support it with more actions. We all know, you can see so many of the lies now. So that's your power. Call it out. Don't be afraid of it. Be prepared to risk something. And it is going to be hard, and it is going to be rocky. But you know what? It feels a lot better than living in fear. It really does feel a lot better than living in fear. I always tell my kids that the fear of something is always worse than the something, right? When you anticipate it, and when you're actually dealing with it, and you're taking it on, it's okay. It might be uncomfortable, it might be difficult, but it feels better because you know in the core of your heart and your soul that that's what we're supposed to do. Each and every one of us. That's our real reason for being. So the last thing I want to tell you is about a man whose name is Amrullah Saleh. And he is the acting president of Afghanistan. And his son stayed with us here in Fredericksburg. He lived with us. He went to MMA in Harlingen. Isn't that pretty amazing? And he was the vice president when President Ghani, the CIA asset, fled the country. Amrullah Saleh did not flee. He didn't quit. He didn't surrender. And neither did thousands of Afghan Special Operations Forces. Thousands of them. And they went to the Panjshir Valley. And it's a little strip of land you've never heard of and don't know how to spell probably. But let me tell you, that little strip of valley has been the most loyal, committed friend of the United States of America for decades. That is the reason we were able to go in after 9/11. That is the reason the U.S. was able to defeat the Soviets. That strip of land and those people. And they've been abandoned and they've been betrayed. And my friend almost died in the mountains there. And he would still be in the mountains, except that as the president, he's got to try to save his people. We have done things that are illegal to help Al-Qaeda and Pakistan kill him and those men. And it's not even just that we betrayed them. The worst part is that we told the world that they were cowards. And we told the world that they gave up. Their sons are being taken from their houses, and Taliban is sending them through, and Al-Qaeda is sending them through the minefields, using them as human mine clearance. Imagine your 10, 11-year-old child. They're doing it every day and every night. When you're sleeping, when you're eating, when you're with your family, when you're going to the bank, when you're going to HEB, they're killing another one of our allies. And apart from the fact, the morality of that breeds a hatred that will never die. from people who are the most loyal allies you could ever have. And my friend, who's one of probably the smartest person I have ever met in my life, he told me in 2009, because we forget, right? 2009 on 60 Minutes, I asked him, Obama's looking for the exits. He wants out of Afghanistan. Because in the new era, right, of revisionist history, it began only with Trump. And he said to me, Afghanistan is a small third world country. We are very poor. And we would never presume to tell a great power like the United States what it can and can't do. I can only tell you that the morality and ethics of being a superpower require you to be here, because your mission is not finished and your enemies are not defeated. He said, but these mountains, they will be here long after you are gone. And these rivers will continue to flow. We will not, Afghanistan will not cease to exist because you are not here. He said, I have fought these people all of my life because they are truly forces of darkness. And I will continue to fight them long after you are gone. That was in 2009. In 2021, he did exactly what he told me he would do. And we are trying to kill him. We, the United States government, is trying to kill him. Our NSA is watching him and his men be slaughtered. They're helping the Pakistanis hunt them down. They're using our assets paid for with our tax money, our military. They're doing that. And he's across the border for a moment. He's going back. But he's going across. He's going back. And a friend of mine was there. And this friend of mine is a missionary and a former Green Beret who saved hundreds of thousands of people, takes his wife and his children with him to every front line. He does medical care. He's built hospitals in the jungle. He's unbelievable. And my friend was there and saw him. And he said to me, I saw your friend. And I said, and what did he say? How did he survive? And he said, well, I'll tell you what happened. He said he came over and I said to him, I'm Lara's friend. And he said, are you a missionary? And he said, my heart stopped to beat. Because, you know, it's an Islamic part of the world. And missionaries and Christians are, you know, the devil. And he said, I looked him in the eye and I said, yes, I'm a missionary. And he said, good, because you are the only ones I trust. And then he told him the story of how he was in the mountains and he had nothing. He had the shirt on his back, a thin cotton shirt. It's freezing right now, the snow is all around. And he had no food, he had no money, he had no phone, he had nobody. He said nobody. Nothing. Nothing between him and God. That was it. And he said God spoke to him. And he had a vision. And he saw the words in the sky. And I said to my friend, he's in this position today. His mistake was he couldn't see the evil in front of him. He was in Washington in July. I interviewed him then, meeting with Biden, meeting with the administration, the generals, and he couldn't see it because he couldn't let go of his faith in the good of this nation. Those friends for 3 decades that he fought with, that trained with, everything. He was the conduit for all intelligence on Al-Qaeda after 2001. He was the guy that they called. And he couldn't let go of that faith and see the betrayal. He could sense it, and they did things, but they didn't do enough because so many of them are dead now. And what I told my friend that, and he said to me, Lara, it's good that he's disillusioned. And I said, why? And he said, well, many years ago when my government came after me, because they don't like Americans going to help people, right? And we're in parts of the world where we're not doing it as a government. So when they came for me, I was shocked and devastated. I had a French doctor volunteering with me, and he said, "Dave, it's good that you're disillusioned." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because it means what you believed in was an illusion." And this is where we are now. We're holding on to an illusion of freedom. We don't live free. We live in fear. But it is real, and it is still there. Before they burn it to the ground with your surrender, figure out not what you're going to do and say, "Oh, that's not going to work." Figure out what you're going to do that is going to work. Because right here in Texas and all over that forgotten flyover country, this is really the machinery and heart and soul of a nation. It's the food. It's the factories. It's the networks. It's the police unions. Don't think the police unions don't know what's coming. It's everyone. It's all of you. And I can't do it. None of us can do it alone. So when you see someone being attacked, stand up for them. When you see my stuff out there, I don't even have a social media person. I mean, it's a miracle I'm even still on there, quite frankly. Right? So put it out. Download and share. Download and share. Go to pandemic.org.series or pandemicseries.org. Watch Plandemic. Question everything. And fight, 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 fight. Thank you.